Manly Hall official, is glad to produce, publish and offer. The Brothers of the Shining Robe Chapter 1, The Temple of Caves. Why I came into the world with this deep-seated wanderlust I have never been able to explain. Relatives and friends said that it was the blood of 10 generations of soldiers and fighters for the British Crown, but I have always believed that these things are not inherited but rather are the results of peculiar phases of individuality, the true explanation of which has only come to me in later years. Suffice it to say by way of introduction that I have been a wanderer upon the face of the earth, from the South Sea Islands to the great salmon fisheries of Alaska and Colombia, from plague-stricken Burma to the deserts of Mexico, from Tartary to Algeria, from the blue lagoons of Venice to the domes and mosques of Constantinople. I have wandered in an endless search. I came into this world with a larger fortune than is good for most, the younger son of an earl. None of the responsibilities of my family worried me, for it seemed improbable, with 2 elder brothers, that the cares and problems of an estate would ever descend upon my shoulders. So, year after year I wandered over 3/4 of the known globe. At last, one sultry evening I found myself standing on a point of rock jutting out from the sides of a great cliff. Before me, unrolling in majestic grandeur, rose the snow-topped glaciers of the Himalayas. Straight in front, the sheer crest of Mt. Everest shot heavenward, and the rays of the fast-setting sun bathed it in purple and rose shadows so that its glacial peak gleamed, like the diamonds in the crowns of emperors. The strange land of the East had always held a fascination for me, and now I stood looking out at this great expanse of natural majesty hundreds of miles from the nearest white man merely as the result of fancy. During my wanderings in northern and central India, which had occupied some 5 years, I had come closer to a true understanding of the Oriental mind than many white men. I had eaten with them, slept with them, prayed with them, tended, with practical knowledge which is the inherent right of the Western world, their sick, read their books, loved them and hated with them, and as the result I believe I can honestly say that to some degree at least I know the East. If you're enjoying this video and finding value in the content, we kindly ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel. A large portion of our listeners and viewers haven't subscribed yet, and by doing so, you'll help us grow and continue bringing you more high-quality audiobooks. Your support means a lot to us, and it's just one click away. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to stay connected and never miss out on our latest releases. While talking one day with one of their learned and holy men, he told me a little with the trust of many months of friendship, of the center ground of their faith, pointing to where the blue haze of the sky was broken by the line of mountains. In a voice filled with awe and reverence, he told me of the sacred temple of the caves. He said that there lived in this ancient monastery a very wise man, beloved of God and the mouthpiece of Brahma. Then he became silent and would say no more, but my inquisitiveness was aroused and I asked many learned Brahmins to give me more details of this seared temple, but all shook their heads and despite their high regard either knew nothing or refused to reveal that which they did know. It was that short legend, those few involuntary words of the old mendicant, that changed the destiny of my life. For with the impetuosity which remained with me even after the days of my youth, I decided to wander these hills and mountains until I myself found the temple of the caves and spoke with this great wise man whom legend told me lived there. My readers would suppose that a simple thing like this was of small importance, But to a mind like mine, which knew nothing of the responsibilities of one phase of life, the mere carrying out of a desire was all important. As evening fell on the day in question, I stood on the crag of rocks overlooking the valley, in whose dark and gloomy depths a fine mountain stream fed by the glaciers flowed on in silence, to spread later and be lost in the marshlands below. 5 months I had climbed through the mountains, among the caves of the holy men, through cities long deserted, through jungles and among broken rocks, and like many other searchers who had gone before, found no trace of the thing I sought. At my feet on the boulder lay a heap of human bones. Some other wanderer had ended his pilgrimage where I had but started mine. Slowly the beautiful view vanished in the haze of night, and a pale blue light from the waning moon took the place of the sun, and slowly turning I descended again to the plateau some 50 feet below. As I did so, my eyes wandered upward past a great cleft of rock where I had been standing. Walls of granite and stone rose nearly 1,000 feet in rough, broken grandeur. But as I stood gazing out and up, a strange feeling possessed me. I do not know whether you have ever felt when alone that someone was standing behind you looking at you, but this feeling suddenly swept over me, and in the eerie stillness I felt I was not alone, and yet as far as I could see in the pale moonlight no living thing was visible. Suddenly over the rough ground at my feet a dark shadow passed, as though a great bird had soared over the cliffs and rocks, but the shadow was not that of a bird. It was that of a tall human being passing silently somewhere between me and the moon. Looking quickly to the top of the cliff, I was in time to see a stately white-robed figure with long gray beard and white turban pass the field of vision between me and the light and vanish between two great rocky boulders. Around this figure hovered a number of flashings, dancing lights of shining white, and after he had gone for several seconds the opening gleamed and glowed as though by some hidden fire. Then even that vanished. I cannot explain the reason, but the thought crossed my mind in a flash that this figure was in some way connected with the place I sought, and regardless of tearing my hands and clothing I climbed as rapidly as possible upward, and in some 10 minutes stood where the Shining One had been. I found that I was in a natural hallway of rock which reminded me of the roofless temples of Karnak. On each side massive pillars of natural stone rose from 30 to 50 feet above me to be lost in the shadows of night, and the tiny, winding path led straight into the side of a lofty hill invisible from below. I hesitated, for I realized that it is not always safe to enter the temples of the East, but my hand closing over the hilt of my revolver reassured me, and with the bravado which shows lack of better sense I took a hitch at my belt and started up the mountain. I must have gone nearly a mile in gloom which grew ever deeper before I realized that the walls had closed above me, and that I was no longer in a great canyon or cleft, but was in a cave. There was no sign of human being, and save for the narrow path it seemed that no living thing had ever entered there. My matches had given out, but I had taken the precaution to pick up a broken stick which I had lighted, and with this firebrand I kept on my way. The ruddy light of my torch made each outcropping rock appear to be a living thing. Suddenly I stopped. Another light was added to that of my torch. Outlined against the smooth stone wall was a lighted doorway reflected from some angle invisible from my present position, and in the doorway was the silhouette of a tall, thin figure whose hands seemed clasped upon his breast. Drawing my revolver, I started to advance, and suddenly a cold chill ran up and down my spine. Could not move. My eyes My hands and feet could move, but I could go neither forward nor backward. As far as I could see, there was nothing to prevent me, but when I tried to take a first step, it seemed that I struck a wall which no power of mine could pass through. Then slowly a strange numbing sensation passed over me. My revolver dropped from a hand that could no longer hold it, and my firebrand struck the ground with it. I could do nothing but gaze at the red shadow outline on the wall, a shadow which told by its flickering motion that it was caused by a blazing fire. Slowly the figure moved, and around an elbow of the rock there appeared a solitary being, the strangest that my eyes have ever looked upon. The man was nearly 6.5 feet tall, robed from head to foot in a glistening, shining, pearl-gray garment which in the moonlight outside I had mistaken for white. Around his head was a turban, one end of which fell upon his shoulder. His age none could tell, but he appeared to be beyond the prime of life, for his full black beard was flecked with gray, as was his hair that fell contrary to custom on his shoulders from under the edge of his turban. As I looked at him, it seemed that my eyes too were paralyzed, for in spite of all the efforts that I made, I could not take them from his face. His eyes, though large and piercing, still held in them a look of gentleness and kindness. The feeling of fear changed to a strange attraction, and warmth and comfort surrounded me the moment he turned his face to mine. All around his body, which seemed powerful but spare, strange flickering shadows seemed to twist and turn. I felt, in spite of myself and my disregard for heathen ideals, that if I had not been paralyzed, I would have been on my knees before him, for there was something in that cave which no words of mine can express. He slowly came forward, and taking me by the hand motioned me to advance. As he did so, it seemed that the metal fetters and bonds dropped from me, my consciousness and power of locomotion returned, and with perfect ease I followed him where before I could not go, and passing through an arch of natural stone, I entered into one of the strangest rooms I believe that human being was ever in. The sacred magic of the Kabbalah. The science of the divine names. In this work, the study of numbers and the Hebrew alphabet is taken up in a way never before undertaken. No system of numerology or Kabbalism is promulgated, but a few underlying principles are given here, useful to all students of mystic, occult, and Kabbalistic philosophy. The work is divided into 3 parts as listed below. Part 1: The Key to the Sacred Wisdom. A study of the flaming letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the creation of the sacred name, the mystery of the vowel points, and the unwritten books of Moses. The origin and mystery of numbers. Under this heading are grouped the natural laws as they are expressed in numbers from 1 to 10, and the application of these laws to the problems of daily living. The power of invocation and the science of the sacred names. In this part of the work, transcendental magic is completely unveiled, and the ancient rituals of calling up spirits is exposed, and the true meaning of transcendentalism and the finding of the lost word is presented to the student, including the invocation of Christ. A most unique and unusual document containing over 50 pages, neatly bound in an art cardboard cover. This work should be in the library of all occult students, not to be believed but to be considered. As is the case with our other publications, you must fix your own price for the work, not to cover your share of the responsibility, but that the entire work may go on and you and others may be in a position to receive the work which we are putting out. Masonry, the robe of blue and gold. Three silent beings hidden in the depths of the unknown weave eternally the thread of human fate. Three sisters known to the world as the Norns or Fates incessantly twist between their fingers a tiny cord which is one day to be woven into a living garment, the coronation robe of a king. Under many names this garment is known among the mystics and occult students of the world. To some it is the simple yellow robe of Buddhahood. By the ancient Jews it was symbolized as the robe of the high priest and the garment of glory unto the Lord, while to the Masonic brother it is the robe of blue and gold, the Star of Bethlehem, the wedding garment of the Spirit. Three fates weave this living garment, and man himself is the creator of his fates. The triple thread of thought, action, and desire binds him when he enters into the sacred place or seeks admittance to the lodge, but later this same cord is woven into the wedding garment whose purified folds shroud the sacred spark of his being. We all like to be well dressed, and robes of velvet and ermine seem to us symbols of rank and glory. But many an ermine cape has covered an empty heart, while many a crown has rested on a tyrant's brow, and many a velvet cloak has gowned an empty void. These symbols are earthly things, and in the worlds of matter are too often misplaced. But the true coronation robe, the true garments of the Mason, are not of earth, for his robe of glory tells of spiritual growth. The garments of the high priest of the tabernacle were but symbols of the bodies of men, which purified and transmuted glorify the life within, and the little sliver bells tinkled with never-ending music from the fringe of his vestments, their silver note telling of a harmonious life, while the breastplate reflected the gleams of heavenly truth from its many-sided gems. There is one garment without a seam which was worn often by the Masonic brothers of old, in the day of the Essenes, when the monastery of the lowly Nazarenes rose in gloomy grandeur from the steep sides of Mount Tabor to be reflected in the silent waters of the Dead Sea. This one-piece garment woven without a seam is the spiral thread of human life, which, when purified by right motive and right living, becomes a tiny line of golden light which weaves eternally the purified garment of regenerated bodies. Like the white of the lambskin apron, it stands for the simple, the pure, and the harmless, the requirements of the master mason, who must give up forever the pomp and vanity of this world and seek to weave with his own soul that simple one-piece robe which marks the master. We can still see the lowly Nazarene in his spotless robe of white, a garment no king could buy but worthy of a god. This robe is woven by the daily actions of our lives, each expression weaving a thread, black or white, according to our actions and the motives which prompted them. As the master mason labors in accordance with his vows, he slowly weaves this spotless robe out of the transmuted expressions of his energies. It is this white robe which prepares and sanctifies him for the robe of glory which can only be worn over the spotless, seamless garment of his purified life. Now comes the moment when the candidate, purified and regenerated, begins to radiate the life powers of the divine. From him pour forth streams of light, and a great aura of many-colored fires surrounds him with its radiance. This wonderful garment, of which all earthly robes are but symbols, is built of the highest qualities of human nature, the noblest of ideals, the greatest of aspirations, the purification of bodies, the unselfish service to others. All these things build into the Mason's spiritual powers which radiate as a wonderful body of living fire. This is the robe of glory, this is the garment of blue and gold, which shining out as a five-pointed star of light heralds the birth of the Christ within. Man is then, indeed, a Son of God pouring out through the tubes of his own being the life rays which are the light of men. This spiritual ray, striking hearts that long were cold, raises them from the dead. It is the living light which illuminates those still buried in the darkness of materiality. It is the power which raises by the grip of the lion's paw. It is the great light which seeks forever the spark within all living things, and finding it awakens again dead ideals with the power of the Master's word. Then the Master Mason becomes, indeed, the sun in Leo, and reaching downward into the darkness of crystallization and materiality raises his murdered builder from the dead by the grip of the Master Mason. As the sun awakens the seedlings in the ground, so this Son of Man, glowing with the light divine, pours out from his own purified being the mystic spears of redeeming light which awaken the seeds of hope and truth and nobler lives in others where discouragement and suffering have too often brought down the temple and buried beneath its debris the true reason for being and the true motive for growth. It is this robe which enfolds all things, warming them and preserving them with its light and life, as the glorious robe of the sun, the symbol of all life, bathes and warms all things with its glow. Man is a god in the making, and on the potter's wheel he is being molded as in the mystic myths of Egypt. As his light shines out to lift and preserve all things, he accepts the triple crown of godhood and joins the throng of master masons who in their garments of glory, the robes of blue and gold, are seeking to illuminate the darkness of night with the triple light of the Masonic Lodge. Ceaselessly the Norns spin the thread of human fate. Age in and age out upon the loom of destiny are woven the living garments of God. Some are rich in glorious colors and wondrous fabrics, others are broken and frayed before they leave the loom. But all are woven by the three sisters, thought, action, and desire, which in the hands of the ignorant build around them walls of mud and bricks of slime, while in the hands of the pure of heart this living thread is woven into raiment celestial and garments divine. Do what we will, we cannot stop the nimble fingers that twist the threads, but we can take the thread and use it as we will. The wool may be red with the blood of others, it may be dark with the uncertainties of life, but if we will we may restore its whiteness and weave from it the seamless garment of a perfect life. Blessed are they that know and know that they know, for they are wise. Blessed are they who know not and know that they know not, for they can be instructed. Cursed are those who know not and know not that they know not, for they are foolish. Cursed are they who know and know not that they know, for they are asleep, and who shall awaken them? Copyright 2025 by Manly Hall Official. Thank you for listening. Please consider to subscribe, like, and share to help the channel growth, new videos on a daily basis.